They say love is blind, but apparently it's also deaf, drunk, and mildly illiterate, because it sure as hell couldn't read the signs. I always knew Candy had a taste for the dramatic, but until that morning, I hadn't realized she'd graduated to community theater level betrayal. The first clue came not in perfume or lipstick, but in something far more blasphemous: the sudden, pristine presence of a freshly folded fitted sheet on our bed, something she swore for years was physically impossible. And that's when I knew something was off. See, Candy folding laundry is like a snake baking a pie, wrong on every level. So I stood there, staring at that crisp corner fold like it was mocking me, wondering who exactly she was trying to impress with her sudden domestic renaissance. I didn't say a word, just let the silence fill the trailer, me, and that perfectly tucked elastic edge having a standoff like it held the secrets of the universe. The dogs weren't barking. The TV wasn't on. But something in the air felt staged, like I'd walked into a set that hadn't finished rehearsals. Then I noticed it, a half-drunk can of grape soda on the porch railing, sun-warmed, open, still fizzing. Problem is, neither of us drinks grape soda. Candy says it tastes like cough syrup and regret, and I haven't touched it since the Clinton administration. But my neighbor Kyle, 2 trailers down, he drinks it religiously. Says it pairs nice with menthols and conspiracy podcasts. I walked back inside and checked the trash, nothing. Checked the sink, clean. Checked the bathroom, her shampoo bottle was moved, pushed behind mine, like someone taller had knocked it over and set it back wrong. And the worst part? Our bathroom rug, the ugly one with the cartoon chickens, was flipped upside down. Not kicked or ruffled, flipped deliberately. That rug has lived there for 5 years and never once done a somersault without reason. Still, I didn't say a word. Just stood there letting it all sink in, like a slow poison trickling through the pipes. I turned on the fan, the kind that hums like an old fridge dying slowly, and sat at the table where she'd left her phone charging. No passcode. Never needed one. Candy was the kind of woman who believed secrets should be said, not stored. And yet, there it was, a notification, half faded on the lock screen. Miss you already, face-blowing kiss, K. I opened it. Just that. No other messages. She deleted them all. But she forgot about the Bluetooth history on her car stereo. Guess what synced last Thursday at 1:13 a.m.? Kyle's burner Spotify playlist, 5 tracks of late 90s slow jams and 1 podcast about black market tractor parts. That's not a playlist you stumble into unless you're horizontal and half-naked. So I sat back, sipped my now-warm beer from the night before, and smiled. Not the smile of a man broken or betrayed. No, it was something colder, cleaner, like a switch had flipped. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even surprised. I was interested. Interested in how far the rabbit hole went, and just how many rabbits were down there screwing in the dark. I'd fixed Kyle's plumbing 2 weeks ago. Now I was about to fix something else. Quietly, thoroughly, and with precision. Candy had folded the fitted sheet. Now I was going to fold the entire damn circus. One step at a time. At first, I told myself it was seasonal. People get restless when spring kicks in, the thaw makes you want to move, breathe, maybe buy dumb stuff off the internet. Candy started talking about new beginnings, like she was narrating a commercial for antidepressants. She'd lean against the trailer's doorway after her shift, smoking slower than usual, gazing out like she was waiting for some invisible bus to take her away. I asked if she was tired, and she said no, just reflecting. That word sat weird in her mouth, like she wasn't used to saying it. Candy had never reflected on anything in the decade I'd known her, she reacted. Passionately. Loudly. Now she was floating through rooms like a ghost in yoga pants, scribbling in a fresh journal she bought from a gas station clearance bin. Said she was working through internal blockages, whatever the hell that meant. I tried to play along. I started cooking more, nothing fancy, just comfort food she used to like. But she'd take 2 bites, then say she wasn't hungry. She stopped asking me to watch TV with her at night. Started calling every new habit a ritual, like lighting candles on the porch to release the day, or keeping her phone face down and unavailable for emotional interference. That's what she called it, emotional interference. I laughed at first, thought it was something she heard from one of those podcasts she plays while pretending to clean. But she was dead serious. I wasn't a partner anymore, I was static. Background noise in her new inner sanctuary. Still, I let it slide. I chalked it up to burnout, midlife stuff, hormones, hell, maybe Mercury was in retrograde. Then came the purchases. Random. Unnecessary. A $300 blender when we already had a working one. Essential oils she never opened. A box of crystals that I swear hummed under the kitchen light. When I asked about the blender, she said it spoke to her and waved me off like I was an accountant, not her husband. Then she stopped sharing passwords, not just her phone, but the Netflix account, the Amazon Prime, even the damn Wi-Fi. Said she was cultivating sacred boundaries. I asked what that meant, and she said, "It means I don't want to be monitored." Walter. Monitored? I hadn't so much as scrolled through her phone in years. I trusted her. I'd been nothing but solid. Bought her tires when she said the car fell off. Helped her sister move. Even did her mother's taxes last April without so much as a thank you. And yet somehow I was now a surveillance drone in her liberation narrative. I didn't fight it. I kept my mouth shut and watched. Watched her come home later, but always with some spiritual excuse. Full moon hikes, breathwork classes, women's circles. The trailer started to smell like sage and detachment. She wore different makeup, less blush, darker eyeliner. She stopped calling me Han and started calling me Walt, like I was a coworker she barely tolerated. I checked her car once, not because I was looking for anything, just because I needed a flashlight out of the glove box. Found a parking pass from a resort an hour away. Dated 3 Saturdays ago. She told me she'd been with her cousin that day antiquing. That pass didn't come from an antique store. It came from a spa lodge with couples packages and in-room jacuzzis. But I said nothing. Not yet. My stomach sank like a stone in the creek behind the park, but my face didn't move. I kept cooking. Kept pretending. I didn't even flinch when she made her Instagram private. Said it was to protect her healing process from toxic energies. Translation: I don't want you seeing who's liking my photos now. I kept nodding. Kept smiling like a dog who doesn't understand it's being left behind. Then she started sleeping on the edge of the bed. Not dramatically, just a slow shift, inch by inch, night after night, until there was a cold canyon between us and the middle sheet never got wrinkled. She said it was for better sleep alignment. Said my body heat was affecting her dreams. And still, I said nothing. Because part of me still wanted to believe. Still clung to the idea that maybe this was just a phase, some weird female molting season she'd eventually shed. I didn't want to be the guy who jumps at shadows, accuses his woman of sins she hasn't admitted to. But deep down, something was dying. Not with a bang, but with a slow, suffocating whimper. Like a candle burning from both ends, flickering just enough to pretend it's still alive. I used to know what Candy was thinking before she said it. Now she was fluent in a language I never learned. And every time she smiled, I could see it, like a curtain drawn just enough to let me know the lights were on, but the show was no longer for me. It happened on a Tuesday, which somehow made it worse, because betrayal always hits harder when it shows up wearing the mask of routine. Candy had left her phone on the kitchen counter, screen down as usual, but this time it vibrated once, then again, then a third time, in rapid succession like it was gasping for air. I wasn't snooping. I was pouring coffee, same as I always did, same chipped mug, same creaky floorboard near the fridge. But something about that triple buzz felt wrong, like the device itself was panicking. I glanced at the screen without touching it. 3 messages. No names. Just numbers. First one. Last night was unreal. Still tasting you. Second. Your man suspect anything yet? Face with years of joy. Third. Same time Thursday? You wearing that red thing again? It didn't even feel like a punch. It felt like ice water dumped straight into my bloodstream. My hand didn't shake. My jaw didn't tighten. I just stood there, coffee still pouring, overflowing the mug, burning the back of my knuckles, and I didn't even flinch. She walked in a minute later, half-dressed, hair still wet, brushing it out with that casual arrogance she'd perfected. She looked at me, looked at the mug, chuckled, said, "Guess someone needs more sleep." And just like that, I saw her for what she was, a stranger playing dress-up in my house. Everything before that moment had been theory, instinct, the slow flickering of a hunch. But this was math. 3 messages. 3 nails in the coffin. And the worst part? The timing. Because I'd spent that same Monday night sitting on the porch, fixing the screen door hinge, thinking about surprising her with a weekend in the mountains, maybe even taking her to that little cabin she once said reminded her of her grandmother's place. While I was planning love, she was pulling off lingerie. While I was oiling the hinges, she was unhooking her bra for someone else. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask who the number belonged to. I didn't even pick up the phone. I just turned off the coffee pot, rinsed my hand, and made a list in my head. A precise, surgical list. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't furious. I was finished. It's a rare moment in a man's life when the fog lifts so completely you can see your path forward in brutal, blinding clarity. This wasn't about infidelity anymore. This was about disrespect, about invasion, about someone thinking they could build a fantasy kingdom out of your trust and expect you to sweep the floors in silence. I watched her put on her earrings in the hallway mirror, still texting with a half smile, probably confirming Thursday night's debauchery, and I memorized the shape of that smirk. Like she'd won something. Like she'd gotten away clean. That's the thing about people like her. They think silence is weakness. But what they don't realize is that some of us don't speak when we're angry because we're already building something. I watched her leave. Said nothing. Just nodded once and let the door close behind her. And then I sat down with a pen, opened my old utility ledger, and began mapping out every point of leverage I had, financial, emotional, digital. Because from that moment forward, this wasn't a marriage. It was a game of chess. And Candy? She'd already made the first losing move. The first thing I did was buy a burner phone, nothing fancy, just something with a keypad and enough battery life to outlast her lies. I kept it in the shed behind the trailer, buried under a crate of old extension cords she hadn't touched in years. Then I made a fresh social account under the name Jessie, slapped on a profile pic pulled from a stock photo site, some guy with a trucker hat and a pit bull, and started following her usual haunts online. Nothing creepy, just proximity. She followed back. That was my first win. Then I got to work. I knew from her calendar on the fridge that she was planning a sound healing retreat in Shelbyville the following weekend. Sounded like hippie nonsense, but I smiled when she told me about it, said it was great she was prioritizing her wellness. Meanwhile, I called the only hotel in town with the words retreat and spa in their name and asked if Marlene Reynolds had checked in last time. Not my wife's name, but a fake one she'd used once when ordering candles under the radar info I pulled from a receipt she left in her glove box. They confirmed she had. I thanked them and hung up. That was confirmation number 2. I didn't follow her. I followed her best friend, Linda. Linda had a pattern. Every Wednesday night, she went to a bingo night at the church 2 counties over, and I knew for a fact she didn't have a license anymore. So how was Candy going out with Linda on those same nights, same times, week after week? She wasn't. I verified by going to the church myself and watching Linda walk in solo every damn time. That made 3. Then I planted the first trap. I told Candy I'd been offered a weekend shift out in Bowling Green and wouldn't be home Friday through Sunday. She nodded, barely looked up from her tea, said, "That's good. Money's tight." She was already making space. So I left Friday morning as planned, but only drove 10 minutes out, parked behind an old service station, and circled back after dark. Lights were off at our place, but her car was gone. I waited, took a thermos of coffee and a pair of binoculars. She came home at 2:08 a.m., hair down, face flushed, same damn grape soda in her cup holder. I didn't confront her. I just noted it. Saturday, same thing. Sunday morning, I left a note saying I came back early. She panicked for a second. I could see it in her eyes. But when I asked how her weekend was, she said it was transformative. I smiled, told her she was glowing. Then I checked the bank account, our shared one. Small charges, nothing dramatic. But one kept repeating, Steele's Auto Spa, a detail shop off Highway 15. I drove there and asked casually if they had a loyalty program. Said my wife's car kept showing up on the statements. The guy behind the desk smiled and said, "Oh, Candy's man, right?" Didn't correct him. Just nodded. Then he said, "She sure does love that air freshener. Her boyfriend picks one up every time." 4. I kept layering it. Started asking innocent questions, like how Linda's niece was doing, if she was still working that job at the daycare. Candy froze. She didn't remember which lie she'd told me. Said, "Oh, right, yeah, she quit." But I already knew Linda didn't have a niece. That was the lie she'd built to explain one of her missing nights. 5. I even checked the trash, started logging timestamps on receipts she left behind. Nail salon at 3 p.m., but told me she was stuck in traffic. Except I called the salon. They closed at 2 that day for a plumbing issue. 6. All the while, I smiled. Slept next to her. Kissed her cheek before work. Made her coffee. Let her think the mask was still working. Because I needed to see the full picture before I tore it all down. She was so sure she was clever, so convinced she was dancing on top of graves. But what she didn't know was that I'd been watching her choreography the entire time. I was the quiet audience in the dark, clapping in silence. And the curtain was about to fall. It happened at the VFW Hall, of all places, a charity auction for the local animal shelter, filled with folding chairs, lukewarm coffee, and enough red, white, and blue bunting to choke a bald eagle. I picked it because it was public, neutral, and so mundane she'd never suspect a thing. I told her we'd been invited by the coordinator, some nonsense about a couple's recognition ceremony, said they wanted to highlight long-term relationships in the community. She preened a little when I said it, smiled with that satisfied little twitch she gets when she thinks she's still got me wrapped around her finger. She even wore heels, did her makeup like she hadn't in weeks, told me she felt radiant, and I agreed, because it was true. Radiant like a deer in headlights. I let her mingle, let her sip her free wine and tell stories about our little trailer life to people who barely knew us. Then the slideshow began, something the organizers put together, supposedly showcasing couples and community projects. Only this one had a twist. About halfway through, just after a blurry photo of a kitten being bottle-fed by a firefighter, the screen flickered, and there it was. A still frame I'd pulled from a security cam I installed in the Woodshed weeks ago. Candy, bent forward, lips pressed against someone else's neck, her shirt open, hands roaming where they had no right to be. The room went quiet. Not shocked, just confused, polite murmurs trickling through the crowd. She turned to me, slow, her wine glass frozen midair. "What the hell was that?" she said, eyes wide, voice just above a whisper. I didn't answer. I just reached into my coat pocket and handed her a flash drive. Everything's on here. Dates, footage, messages, voice recordings. She blinked twice, then tried to laugh. Light, forced, like a sitcom character recovering from a pratfall. "Walter, come on. That's not what it looks like." I didn't speak, just stared. Silence is a strange kind of violence when wielded properly. "We were just talking," she said, more urgently now, her voice cracking slightly. "Kyle was going through something. He needed comfort." She paused, then tilted her head. "You never really ask how I'm doing." "Not really." There it was, deflection, the last refuge of the cornered. "This whole thing, you've been so checked out, Walt. All your routines, your little systems." I felt like a roommate, not a wife. I let her go on. Let her dig. Every sentence a shovel full of dirt on her own coffin. "It just happened," she said, a shrug laced with desperation. "One time. One mistake. You can't throw away everything over one mistake." She was trembling now. Her wine glass clinked softly against the table as she set it down. "You think you're perfect?" she snapped, voice rising just enough to draw glances. "You think sitting there all quiet makes you better than me? You're not some saint, Walt. You're just boring. Cold. You suck the air out of every room and call it stability." I nodded once, then leaned in, just enough for only her to hear. "You folded a fitted sheet, Candy. That was your first mistake." Her face paled. "You think you're clever, but you're clumsy when you're in love with someone else. You start changing things, little things. Things you don't even notice, but I do." Her mouth opened, closed. "I wasn't in love," she said finally. "It was just attention. And fun. God, don't act like you've never wanted that." "I didn't have to lie to get it," I said, calm as a surgeon. "I didn't have to crawl out of bed like a thief while the person who trusted me was fixing the door hinge I broke." She shook her head, fast now, like a dog trying to shake off water. "So what, you gonna leave me? Embarrass me in front of everyone? What's your big move, Walt? Post the video online? Tell my sister? Kick me out?" Her tone was bitter, cocky, like she thought she still had a hand to play. "You think this makes you strong? This just makes you pathetic." She laughed, a hollow, ragged sound. "You'll be all alone with your canned chili and your conspiracy podcasts, talking to the dogs like a lunatic." I looked at her a long time, then said, softly, "That'd still be quieter than living next to your guilt." The mockery drained from her face like a faucet turned off. Her eyes darted around the room, realized people were watching now, their murmurs growing louder, their expressions shifting from confusion to clarity. But I didn't leave. I didn't storm out. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, as the room got quieter again, all eyes flicking between her and me, and the screen now frozen on a second photo, her, legs around Kyle's waist, time-stamped. She opened her mouth to say something else, but nothing came. Just a shaky breath, a trembling lower lip, and the unbearable silence of someone finally realizing the floor beneath her has vanished. I didn't move. Not yet. Let it hang. Let it sting. Let her sit in the weight of it, the gravity of being seen, truly seen, for who she really was. She followed me out of the VFW like a storm, pretending to be a breeze, trying to catch up in those heels she only wore when she needed to feel powerful, but the sound of them clicking on the pavement was more desperate than commanding. "You really think you're better than me now?" she snapped as I reached the truck. "He's already in hand." I didn't answer. Just unlocked the door, slid in, and waited. She pounded once on the window, then yanked open the passenger side and climbed in like she still had the right. "Say something," she hissed, breath sharp, eyes wide. "You think sitting there like a statue makes you some kind of saint? You didn't even try to stop me. You just watched like a creep." I turned to her, slowly. "You stopped yourself. I just gave you a mirror." She blinked, caught off guard, then scoffed. "A mirror? What are you, some kind of armchair psychologist now? Please. You're not deep, Walt. You're just empty. You always have been." I said nothing. She needed to fill the silence more than I ever could. "You smothered me," she said next, louder. "You made me feel small. I couldn't breathe in that trailer without feeling like I was dying. You never changed, never grew. I had to find myself somewhere." I looked out the windshield, calm as a man watching the rain. "You didn't find yourself. You lost what was left." Her jaw twitched. "Oh, come off it. What, you think you're some kind of martyr now? You think sitting there, pretending nothing touches you, makes you strong? It makes you pathetic. You were never a man. Real men fight for what they love. Real women don't hand themselves over to the first man who remembers their birthday," I said, and her breath caught. Just for a second. Just enough to prove I'd hit something real. "You think this was about love?" She spat. "It was survival. I was starving, Walt. You think keeping the lights on and fixing things is love? That's not love. That's maintenance." I smiled, faintly. "Then why did he leave you broken?" That cracked her. Her eyes flashed with something raw, something animal, and then it flipped, just like that, into pleading. "We can still fix this," she said, voice soft now, almost musical, like she was trying on a different costume. "We've been through so much. Everyone makes mistakes. You've made them too. We can find our way back." I shook my head, slow and deliberate. "You don't miss me. You miss the man who didn't know yet." Her lips trembled. "So what? You're just going to throw it all away?" "You already did. I'm just clearing the wreckage." She looked down, shaking her head. "You're cold, Walt. You always were. I just didn't see it until now." "No," I said. "You saw it. You just thought you could warm yourself somewhere else and come back when it got dark." That silence again, heavy and wide. She gripped the edge of the seat like she was falling, like she needed something to hold. "You're not even going to yell?" she said finally, her voice cracking. "Not going to ask me why? Not going to beg?" I turned the key in the ignition. The engine rumbled to life. "You already told me why. You just didn't know it." Her voice was barely a whisper now, panic threading through the words like barbed wire. "So that's it? You're just done?" I looked at her for a long second, then leaned in close enough for her to smell the calm on me. "I'm not done, Candy. I've just started." And in that moment, I saw it, that flicker of realization in her eyes that nothing she could scream, cry, twist, or manipulate would change the direction of the storm. Because it wasn't rage that scared her now, it was indifference. The one thing she couldn't seduce, couldn't outwit. She wasn't arguing with a man anymore. She was arguing with a wall she built herself. And for the first time since this all began, she understood that she had already lost. The morning after the VFW unraveling, I didn't sleep in, didn't sulk, didn't even sip my coffee slow. I woke up with a blueprint in my head and a calendar in my hand. The war had already begun, but now I was drawing the battle lines. First move, documentation. I gathered everything: texts, voicemails, screenshots, timestamps, footage from the Woodshed camera, receipts from spa retreats, printouts of bank transactions to Steele's auto spa, and even the gag gift keychain I found under the passenger seat of her car that read "Queen of Dirty Secrets." I scanned it all, backed it up twice, once to a flash drive, once to an encrypted cloud folder titled "Roof Repair Quotes," a name boring enough she'd never look twice. Then I closed our joint bank account, not just froze it, but surgically drained and reallocated it into 2 new accounts under my name only. I called the credit card company, explained the situation with cool, flat professionalism, and removed her access permanently. Same with the car insurance. We had 2 vehicles, both in my name. I canceled her coverage entirely, effective immediately. Let her find that out the next time she gets pulled over. The next step was the utilities: gas, water, internet. I transferred every single one into a new, separate account. Gave the providers her number and told them she'd be the new point of contact in 30 days. Just enough time for her to think she still had heat and Wi-Fi before the quiet vacuum of reality hits her mid-morning one Tuesday. Then came the job. Candy worked part-time at the dentist's office in town, mostly front desk work, insurance calls. I wasn't out to destroy her income. I was out to destroy her illusion of social standing. So I sent an anonymous email to her boss, attached a sanitized, time-stamped screenshot of her and Kyle from the security footage, nothing explicit, just intimate enough to question judgment, and a polite line suggesting the workplace might want to reevaluate its code of conduct, given her recent evening appearances with married men in public venues. I knew they'd connect the dots, small towns level whisper. Quiet, controlled, devastating. Then came the friends. Not hers, mine. The people who'd been half suspecting something was off but never wanted to say it. I sent a single message to my circle. If you hear anything from Candy, just remember, this is who she really is, with a cropped image from the slideshow, just enough to say everything without saying a word. No explanation. Just evidence. I didn't touch her parents. That was too easy. Instead, I made sure her mother received a package, photos of Candy from last Thanksgiving, looking happy and fed and loved, next to a letter. This is who she used to be. I hope she finds her way back someday. No venom. Just an obituary for a woman still breathing. Then I called my lawyer. Not to file for divorce, yet, but to begin asset separation. We didn't have much, but what we did have, I was going to protect. I moved the title of the trailer into my name only. Had a family friend notarize the change. Rewrote my will. I also made a call to Linda, her supposed alibi, and asked one question. Did she ever tell you I knew? The pause was long. No, Linda whispered. She said you were clueless. That told me everything. I thanked her, told her I wouldn't involve her further, and hung up. Then I updated every password, email, streaming services, social media, even the smart thermostat. Changed the locks while she was at work. Took half her clothes, the ones she'd left in the shared closet, and folded them neatly into boxes labeled Property of Deceit. Set them in the shed, right next to the old extension cords, out of sight but not out of reach. I made no announcements. Posted no cryptic messages. I simply dismantled her world in layers, like peeling an onion, knowing full well that each cut would sting more than the last. She still came home each night thinking she had time, thinking I'd sulk, beg, maybe even forgive. She didn't know I'd already relocated my savings, reclaimed my independence, and erased her shadow from every corner of my life. Revenge, for me, wasn't a shout in the dark. It was 1,000 quiet steps taken with clean shoes and a clear mind. And the best part? She still thought the game was in progress. But I had already checkmated her days ago. She just hadn't seen the board collapse yet. It happened on a Saturday, during the one thing Candy loved more than attention, recognition. Her boss was retiring, and the clinic threw a farewell barbecue at the community center, catered, decorated, filled with dentists and hygienists and office assistants all pretending they weren't silently judging each other. I told her we should go together, that it'd be good to show face, support her workplace, be the solid couple everyone used to talk about. She lit up at the idea, probably thought it meant I was softening, folding, coming around to forgiveness like some loyal puppy who didn't know how to live without his leash. She dressed to impress, tight floral dress, curled hair, that lipstick she used to save for special occasions. She looked good, and she knew it. Smiled at herself in the mirror like she was the star of her own comeback story. But I didn't bring her there for applause. I brought her there for the silence. The moment we walked in, you could feel it. Heads turned, conversations dipped a fraction lower, forks slowed mid-bite. She didn't notice at first, too busy basking in the imaginary spotlight. Then came the greetings. Forced smiles. People looking at her, then at me, then back at their drinks. She tilted her head like a confused dog, unsure why the temperature had dropped so fast. Something wrong, she whispered. Not a thing, I said, sipping punch, eyes fixed on the far wall where a photo board displayed snapshots from the clinic over the years. One of those photos, inserted carefully by someone who owed me a quiet favor, showed Candy and Kyle. It wasn't explicit, just blurry enough to be deniable, just clear enough to be unmistakable. A stolen moment behind the woodshed. Her hand on his chest. His lips too close to her ear. The timestamps sat bold in the corner. No one pointed at it. No one said a word. They didn't need to. The silence said more than a sermon. That's when her boss approached, Marianne, 62, steel-spined and sweet-voiced, who'd built the clinic from scratch and didn't tolerate gossip unless it was backed by evidence. She smiled at me first. Walter, thank you for coming. Then turned to Candy. I'll be needing your key card on Monday. We're doing some restructuring. Candy's face didn't move at first, just a flicker, then a twitch. I wasn't told. It's being handled, Marianne said, calm, final, already walking away. Candy turned to me, panic cracking the corners of her mouth. What did you do? She hissed. Nothing, I said. Truth travels on its own. She tried to laugh it off, walked to the refreshment table, tried to charm people into pretending nothing had changed. But they didn't meet her halfway. Her coworkers looked through her. One of them actually walked away mid-sentence. Linda showed up 10 minutes later, arms crossed, face like stone. You told him everything, Candy snapped. Linda didn't deny it. Just said, you used me. I didn't know who you were. Candy's hands shook now, wine sloshing in her cup. She tried to make a joke, something about small towns and big mouths, but her voice cracked halfway through and no one laughed. Then her phone buzzed. She looked down, and I watched the blood drain from her face like a sink had opened inside her. She didn't say what it was. I didn't need to know, but I knew it was Kyle. And I knew it wasn't a love note. Probably a goodbye. Probably a my wife saw everything text. Probably the last string snapping in her little web. She turned to me, eyes wild, mouth tight. You think this makes you a hero? You think tearing me down builds you up? I didn't answer. I just looked at her. The way you look at a painting you've seen 100 times and suddenly realize it's counterfeit. Her mascara started to run. She blinked hard, wiped her cheek like it was someone else's problem. They're judging me like they're saints, she muttered, louder now. Everyone in this room has secrets. You think you're all better than me? The room went still. A few people shifted. One woman picked up her purse. Candy's voice rose. You all knew what he was like. Cold. Controlling. A ghost with a calendar. But you never said anything, did you? You let me rot in that trailer. And there it was, her final gasp, her last performance. But nobody clapped. Nobody comforted. They just watched her unravel like cheap thread. She turned to me, expecting something pity, anger, a response. But I stood still, arms crossed, face neutral. I didn't say a word. Just watched. She saw it then. Not judgment. Not revenge. Indifference. And that's what broke her. Not the job. Not the whispers. Not Kyle vanishing like smoke. It was that she didn't matter anymore. That I didn't hate her. I simply didn't need her. She stumbled back a step, eyes glassy, lips parted as if to beg. But I didn't move. I stayed. Still. Watching. Letting her feel the full weight of what she'd become. And in that silence, she collapsed. Not onto the floor. Not into tears. But into the hollow echo of her own fading relevance. It was supposed to be her redemption dinner, her idea, of course. A fresh start family meal, she called it, claiming she wanted to apologize to everyone, set the record straight, and heal the fractures. I agreed, not because I believed her, but because I knew she still thought this was salvageable, that she could cry and speech her way back into the role she'd burned. We booked a table at Morris Ridge Grill, the kind of place with cloth napkins and fake ferns, where her parents, my brother, a few old friends, and even her coworker Linda showed up in good faith. I sat quietly, sipping water, watching her play host like it was a high school reunion. She wore white, for irony I guess, and opened with a shaky speech about mistakes, pressure, and the complexities of long-term relationships. It was all vague, polished, safe, until I set my glass down and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, tell them what his name was. The whole table stopped. Forks froze mid-air. Candy blinked, frozen. Walter, tell your father, I said, gesturing across the table, the name of the man you cheated with in our woodshed. Or should I? Her mother gasped. Her father sat back, red-faced, silent. You don't have to do this, she said, the syrup gone from her voice. No, I said, standing now, hands flat on the table. You're right. I don't have to. But I will. Because you dragged us all here to watch you perform repentance, and I'm done watching you lie in HD. She tried to laugh it off, a hollow, strained chuckle. Okay, so I made mistakes. But don't act like you were perfect. You left claw marks on a married man's back and told me you were antique shopping. I snapped. You lied with ease. Slept with confidence. And now you want applause for surviving your own wreckage. Her voice shot up. You were cold. You never made me feel seen. You don't get to lecture me when you spent 10 years treating me like a houseplant. My brother stepped in then, trying to lower the heat. Let's all take a breath. No, let them hear this, I said, eyes locked on her. You blamed me because I didn't buy into your fantasy, Because I didn't chant mantras or drink moon water or pretend your cheating was part of your growth. You lit a fire, Candy, and now you're shocked there's ash. She stood, furious now, hands trembling. I gave you the best years of my life. No, I said coldly. You gave me the version of you that was easiest to lie through. Her coworker Linda stood up behind her, visibly uncomfortable. I'm sorry, I didn't know. You did. Candy turned on her. You told him. You betrayed me. No, Linda said, you betrayed yourself. I just refused to help you cover it up anymore. Her mother started crying then, softly. Her father looked away like the shame was radioactive. And then, like clockwork, Kyle walked in, late, dumb, and stunned. He didn't see the full room at first. Just her. Just me. Then her father stood. You, he said, pointing. You're the one. Kyle raised his hands, stumbling back a step. I didn't know it was like this. You knew she was married, I said. You knew enough. But it's fine. She's all yours now, at least until she finds a better sound bath. Candy's voice cracked then. I made one mistake. You made choices. Over and over. And now you don't get to define the damage like you defined the fantasy. You want forgiveness? Earn it. But don't serve it next to mashed potatoes and pretend it's closure. She was crying now. Not performative. Real. Ugly. But it was too late. Her lies were bleeding out in front of everyone, and no one stepped in to stop it. Phones were out. Someone was filming. Her downfall was going digital. She reached for me once, but I stepped back. No, I said quietly. Don't touch what you spent a year trying to replace. And with that, I turned and walked out, not with swagger, not with triumph, but with the dignity of a man who saw the fire coming and walked through it anyway, knowing that on the other side, she'd still be burning. 3 months later, she was living in a studio apartment above a dry cleaner in a town no one brags about, working part-time at a vape shop run by a teenager who calls her ma'am and forgets her schedule half the time. The clinic had let her go the Monday after the dinner, quietly, officially citing reputational concerns, but everyone knew the real reason: patients didn't want their paperwork handled by the woman from the slideshow. Her social media went dark for a week, then reappeared stripped down, new profile picture, no mutual friends, no likes, no comments, just silence, digital exile. Her circle evaporated overnight. Linda blocked her. The brunch group muted her. Her own sister wouldn't return her calls. Kyle disappeared faster than he arrived, like smoke up a chimney, ghosted her the moment his wife's lawyer sent the first notice. Last I heard, he'd gone crawling back to his family in Lexington, telling anyone who'd listen that it was all a moment of weakness. Her parents stopped answering when she called. Her mother sent back a birthday card she mailed, unopened, marked "Returned to Sender" in red ink. I saw her once at the grocery store. She didn't see me. She looked older, smaller, walked like she was waiting to be bumped into. She paid in cash, kept her head down even when the clerk said her name out loud. People didn't shout at her. They didn't spit or curse or lecture. They just didn't see her. And that, more than anything, was what broke her. Not the job, not the apartment, not even losing Kyle. It was becoming invisible in the town where she used to walk like she was queen of the trailer court. Then, last week, she called me. First time in months. I let it ring twice, then picked up, just to hear what shape her voice had taken after everything. It was soft, flat, hollow in all the ways pride once filled. Walt, she said, I don't know who I am anymore. She waited. I didn't answer. You were always right, she said, voice cracking. You were right about everything. I was selfish. I was stupid. And I lost the only good thing I ever had. She was crying now. I could hear it. Could hear the desperation, the unraveling. I still love you, she whispered, as if saying it quiet enough might make it land softer. I waited a full breath before I said, strange. I don't even remember your name anymore. And then I hung up. She didn't call back. Couldn't. Some people don't survive the silence. They need noise to feel alive. But when you burn the man who built your home, you don't get to crawl back and ask for warmth. She made her choices, and I walked through the fire she lit with my spine straight and my eyes open. I didn't need revenge. I just needed distance. And now that I had it, she couldn't reach me with anything but echoes. Thanks for sticking through my story. If you made it all the way to the end, I want to know, where are you listening from? And did you enjoy the ride?